I work the night shift while my wife works during the day. Her job mostly involves male colleagues, which means she spends a lot of time with them. There are some women too, but they're mostly in office or support roles. We've been together since we were 17, and now in our 40s we have children. I'll skip over the details of our family life for now. What's important is that she recently started in this field, so these work relationships are a new development. Lately, she's been hanging out more with her female colleagues after work, and it's happening more often. She usually finishes around 5 but doesn't get home until 7 or 8. A couple of times, she even stayed overnight at one of their houses after drinking, which is strange because she's usually the responsible type who avoids drinking in public. Right now, I'm not overly worried about it. Last night I was home, not working, and went to bed at my usual time. Around 3 a.m., the glow from her phone screen woke me up. I couldn't see if she was texting or browsing, but she wasn't hiding it, so I figured it was nothing suspicious. However, she got up and started getting ready for work, even though her shift doesn't start until 8. I asked her what was up, and she said she was just going for a walk with her colleagues. As a diesel engine repair mechanic, she was dressed nicer than I'd expect for a simple walk or even a regular workday. She left the house around 4, probably reaching her friend's place by 4:30. It was still dark outside, drizzling, and about 45 degrees. Not exactly great walking weather, especially in Arizona, where raincoats aren't common. She drives a truck while I have a car. At 5, I texted her about needing the truck for a dump run, but she didn't reply. So I called her 15 minutes later, and she claimed they were still out walking. She told me to pick up the truck at her workplace. If it hadn't been raining, I might have checked if her hair was wet from a second shower. I have a tendency to overanalyze things due to my unique way of thinking, and I often struggle to read social cues, so maybe I'm overthinking this. I decided to confront her and asked to see her phone. She tried to change the subject and demanded to see mine, so I handed it over, password and all. I had nothing to hide. I barely have personal time, let alone meet anyone else. When I checked her active messages, nothing seemed to have been deleted, but a particular conversation that had caught my attention earlier was mysteriously gone. Feeling suspicious, I called the person who had raised my fears, hoping his name would show up. I handed her the phone and insisted on seeing their text conversation. She acted all innocent, but I pointed out that she messaged him before she left home and after she got back, even when she claimed she was in Vegas. Instead of giving an explanation, she pretended to be confused about why the telephone operator had stored their messages. Frustrated, she went upstairs and refused to talk further. Feeling hurt and betrayed, I decided it was time to pack up and leave. I told her I was leaving and gathered my things. Now let me share what I learned from the police investigator about dealing with situations like this. First off, he mentioned that in minor offenses, the guilty party rarely admits everything. Even if they confess to something, they usually hold back important details. So it's unrealistic to expect a full admission, especially with ongoing infidelity. When you're in such a situation, it's a massive breach of trust, and you might need to consider legal action or making a significant decision. You're essentially gathering information to use later. He advised starting a confrontation by suggesting you know more than they think and encouraging them to talk. The truth is the only thing of value here, so don't reveal the extent of your knowledge. Treat it like a high-stakes poker game, and don't show your hand. He also noted that even after searching her phone, don't expect to find anything. It's probably well hidden or already deleted unless they're not too smart. Perpetrators tend to hide evidence, anticipating a confrontation. Your task is to establish the absence of text messages and call logs. To provide evidence, it's crucial to get records of text messages and calls from your telecom provider and check for gaps in dates and times. A lack of communication with a particular person could suggest they were together. In these moments, make them believe you have the information while concealing its limitations. Obtaining direct evidence of wrongdoing is often challenging. During a confrontation, demand access to their phone. They will likely resist and demand to see your phone, making similar accusations. Be prepared for them to glare at you. My wife reacted the same way when I asked. She claimed not to know my password and insisted I reveal it. Remember that the guilty parties fear being discovered and are more concerned about what you might find on their phone than what they might find on yours. Pay attention to their willingness to disclose information relevant to you. In my case, my wife showed very little interest. She barely glanced at the messages on the phone, not even bothering to check the photo gallery where you'd typically find the incriminating stuff. Instead, her attention was locked on the phone in my hand as I casually scrolled through a list of innocent-looking text conversations. She even remarked, "See, I don't know what you think I'm up to." Determined to continue my investigation, I opened the phone app, typed in the suspect's number, and hit the SMS icon. To my astonishment, there were no messages. I went back to the contact and showed it to her, asking where the missing messages were. She claimed they had never communicated. I disagreed, pointing out that in just the last month, she had exchanged over 900 messages with him. I pressed her to explain where those messages had disappeared. At first, she acted all innocent, but deep down, she must have realized that I knew the number was correct. Reluctantly, she confessed to deleting them, but still didn't tell the whole story. It turned out those messages were about her wanting a divorce, something she wasn't ready to admit to me yet. I didn't reveal the full extent of my suspicions. Instead, I shared just enough information to show I was aware of what was happening. Knowing the exact number of texts was crucial because it served as undeniable proof, reinforcing my claim that I wasn't bluffing. This behavior is a classic sign of guilt. When someone is caught in a tricky situation, they often try to evade and use various tactics to avoid taking responsibility. They'll usually offer some explanation about their whereabouts to deflect blame. However, it's essential to scrutinize the information they provide carefully. If their explanations are vague and seem forced, it's crucial to keep asking for more details. Many false stories are thrown together with little thought and can easily unravel with further probing. While they might mention going to a bar with friends, the story will likely lack specifics, like an argument over darts or who won a game. Innocent spouses generally have no problem sharing the details of a fun evening with friends. Guilty ones, on the other hand, wonder why you're so curious about their activities. Remember, they're expecting a confrontation and are already planning how an innocent person would act in this situation, crafting a believable story. This idea even extends to drawing attention to themselves. When our oldest daughter had a run-in with my wife, she later told me there were two reasons for this. First, she wanted to steer the conversation in case our daughter turned to me. Secondly, those guilty often think that by making themselves the focus, the attention will eventually fade. Looking back, I realized I made a mistake by not asking why our daughter thought that way. I should have asked her to clarify what was said to make her reach that conclusion. In hindsight, I should have taken the initiative and called my daughter myself. It's worth considering how an innocent spouse would react when accused. They'd probably be eager to provide unsolicited, detailed explanations because their conscience is clear. Now let's consider how an innocent person would behave. They might be annoyed by the request to see their phone, still expecting some privacy, but eventually they'd hand it over without much fuss. They'd likely be genuinely confused at first. Honest people don't try to deceive or mislead others. Also, it's important to remember that the most convincing lies often include a bit of truth. In my wife's case, she claimed to have spent time alone in a tattoo parlor getting sketches done. However, when she got home, she didn't bring any sketches or take photos of them. Moreover, she had little to say about the experience, only showing me some design ideas from the internet. She mentioned her appointment was at 1 p.m., but she left our house at 11:30 a.m., which should have only taken her about 45 minutes to reach the parlor. When she returned home, it was around 6 p.m. While I believe she did visit the tattoo parlor that day, I suspect she might have stopped by his place first. Maybe they spent time together, and buying a ticket for a future visit could serve as a potential alibi. They might have had lunch and deep conversations about moral theology at his place before she returned home. That's when I decided it was time to sort out the situation. So it's important to note that a simple alibi doesn't always explain every detail. She mentioned bad traffic, but didn't provide specifics, like a blue Honda flipping over. She also mentioned going to Home Depot to look for lifting belt rings, but came back empty-handed, suggesting an unsuccessful trip. There are other details he taught me, but I can't recall them all right now. I'll report them as soon as I can. She continues to maintain a relationship with him, and it seems unlikely that things will work out between us. I've come to terms with the fact that my anger issues played a significant role in her drifting away, but I'm actively working on improving myself and have made progress. Although she never admitted to cheating, I'm ready to forgive, considering my part in this situation. She said our relationship has no future, but she suggested we continue living together for the sake of our children. I have concerns about the terms of this arrangement, as it seems like a compromise driven by her hidden fears. In response, I suggested that we could get a divorce if that's truly what she wanted. Yet, since she hadn't brought it up, I took it as a clear sign that maybe she wasn't entirely set on the idea. Perhaps she was starting to have second thoughts. Just recently, we had dinner out with the kids, and she seemed unusually friendly. We even had a nice conversation, and she looked me in the eye, something she hadn't done in a while. At that moment, I honestly thought that maybe, just maybe, she was beginning to let her guard down. But everything changed on our way back home. She slipped in a subtle remark, almost like a quiet reminder to herself that she didn't have feelings for me anymore. People often say that leaving a cheater is simple, but when you've built a family together, the betrayal cuts deep. My entire life was tied to what we shared. Those who think I'm weak can claim their victory. But this morning, I found myself waking up to her absence. I didn't need to guess where she was. I already knew. I have his address memorized. I even took photos of her truck parked in his garage earlier, though I'm not entirely sure what drove me to do that. Perhaps it was my way of understanding her mindset. When I got to their place, his car was the only one in the driveway at first, but then I noticed her car parked nearby. Oblivious to my presence, she texted me, asking if we needed any household supplies like garbage bags. I told her we were low on groceries and took the opportunity to ask if she could grab some cream for me. While I pretended to be certain about where she was, I didn't react immediately. A little while later, I saw him drive his car out of the driveway, with her car parked in reverse, making it obvious they left together. I approached the door, intending to ring the bell, but nobody answered. Trying to initiate a conversation, I texted her to ask if she'd received the letter I mentioned. She claimed she hadn't seen it, so I shared its contents with her. After that, she seemed open to discussing the issue. Later, when she texted saying she was at Costco, I quickly replied, letting her know I was aware she wasn't there. About 45 minutes passed before I got a message with a photo of a familiar Costco building. It was clear she had just arrived and was attempting to piece together a story. Refusing to be swayed, I asked her to send a photo of her truck if she wanted me to believe her. She coolly responded that she honestly didn't care whether I believed her or not. In that moment, I had to acknowledge her attempt to protect me from further emotional pain. Maybe she even feared how I might react, which made me feel regretful. But the ongoing lies were causing more damage than the plain truth. To back up her words, she sent me a photo of herself inside a Costco store. Even with this so-called evidence, I chose not to reply, letting her dishonesty linger in silence. I'm caught in a storm of emotions, reflecting on those times when, in my anger, I thought about walking away from her and the kids. Though I'm resolved not to repeat such behavior, I admit that I'm now at the point where I'm ready to explore a new path to extricate myself from this mess. Yesterday I had a consultation with an attorney, and we went over my current situation. Following my therapist's advice, I've decided not to rush into any decisions while I'm still feeling so emotional. Instead, I'm taking the time to think carefully about my options. For now, my soon-to-be ex-wife and I continue living under the same roof for the sake of the kids. It's a tough arrangement, as I often feel the financial strain of supporting the household while she's with another man. She even has a separate group chat with our kids, using it to spread false information, like claiming she went out drinking with someone named Jessica at 4 a.m. I realized she'd need to head to work soon, with just a few hours before her shift began. Considering that bars aren't open at that hour, it became obvious her latest story about going out for drinks was pure fiction. I'm increasingly worried about how her lies affect our youngest child, who, it turns out, has autism. Being highly functional, he's in the habit of checking the opening hours of places like bars and gyms. They're beginning to catch her in her tangled web of deceit. If she continues to deceive me without facing any consequences, the impact of her dishonesty is bound to extend to our children. But after a few quiet nights, I've reached a point where her actions don't keep me awake anymore. I've already met with a lawyer who explained that with shared custody, the alimony I'd have to pay is only $1.42 a month. My wife is adamant about not selling our family home, and it's clear she can't afford to buy it from me or acquire it on her own. However, My lawyer informed me that if I choose to sell the house, it will indeed be sold. This revelation puts me in a difficult position. I have considerably more savings than she does, which means my property might be split evenly. Nevertheless, there are some investments and shares in the company that haven't fully matured yet. The lawyer assures me that these assets can be safeguarded due to the uncertainty surrounding them. Additionally, the lawyer suggested I could protect all my assets by leveraging the house in negotiations. If I decide to cover only half of the mortgage payments until our kids reach adulthood in 5 years, I might negotiate for a fair split of future assets. This way, I can protect my savings while using this arrangement as leverage. The situation has now become more of a strategic financial maneuver than anything else. Personally, I must confess that the stress of sleepless nights and overwhelming sorrow pushed me into attempting reconciliation with my unfaithful wife. I found myself pleading with her, acting as if I had no self-respect left. A couple of weeks ago, I hit a breaking point. I had to leave work early because I couldn't focus on anything. In that moment, I hoped her car would be parked at the house, wishing that perhaps some affection for me might still linger in her heart. Looking back, I now understand how crucial it is to maintain my dignity and not let myself appear foolish in these circumstances. I tried to talk to her, but it was like shouting into the void. My efforts felt pitiful and seemed to make no impact. Sunday came and went with no plans. I told her I wouldn't be home until work started the next day, giving her space with the kids while I was away. After grabbing pizza for the kids, she left again. Feeling aimless and unsure of what to do, I sat in my car, browsing random internet forums and letting my mind drift. For reasons I still can't fully explain, I ended up downloading Tinder and setting up a profile. I wasn't looking for anything serious, so I just mindlessly swiped left on most profiles. I chatted briefly with one woman, but it didn't really catch my interest. The next morning, after a long day at work, I came across another profile. Despite my uncertainty, I impulsively swiped right, and to my surprise, we hit it off immediately. Her greeting, "Hello, handsome," was exactly what I needed to hear. We started chatting and the conversation flowed effortlessly. We even went out for drinks, and unexpectedly, Tuesday night turned into a date. Realizing this could be something more, I felt it was important to be honest about my current situation. Starting a new relationship on a foundation of honesty is essential to me. Interestingly, she had also been through infidelity and had been divorced for some time, but was ready to try dating again. When the evening came to an end, I walked her to her car, and we shared a kiss. It's worth noting that my wife had already filed for divorce, so, legally, we're not bound anymore. To be honest, just the thought of this new connection and the hope it brought made me feel reassured. It finally allowed me to sleep peacefully. It felt as though, in His infinite mercy, God had sent someone to remind me that I am worthy of love and appreciation. This experience rekindled my hope for the future. Even if this connection doesn't blossom into something deeper, I'm grateful for the joy she has brought me. I'm aware things are moving quickly, but it's important to understand that my marriage had been crumbling for years. I had considered divorce multiple times, but I never took action. I must admit that I didn't put in the effort to save the marriage. The affair was the final straw, leading to our breakup. In retrospect, perhaps it was necessary because neither of us was truly happy, but neither had the courage to initiate the split. Reflecting on all of this, I wonder if I would have succumbed to infidelity if faced with the temptation. The fear of being unfaithful has always kept me distant from other women. Sadly, the happy memories my wife and I once shared now feel distant and faded, like memories from another life. Death is a profound event that brings immediate grief, but I think that knowing the end is inevitable makes acceptance come more quickly. Today, I took a huge step forward. I made an advance payment, officially starting the divorce process. As a result, our shared living arrangement will likely end soon. My son and I plan to move into a new place together. Right now, he doesn't talk to his mother. Because of her infidelity, I'm planning to sell the house and claim my fair share of the assets. Even though she's against it, the reality is she can't afford the mortgage and won't get enough from the divorce to buy me out. The divorce proceedings cost $2,500, but despite the initial sting, it's a worthwhile investment for my future. Day trading isn't just a hobby, it's something I excel at. With my increasing profits, I'm looking forward to larger deals. I've always dreamed of owning a 1979 Fiat Spider convertible. a luxury I couldn't justify as a responsible married man. But now, my circumstances have changed, and I'm free of those restrictions. Once everything settles down, I'll finally fulfill my dream and get behind the wheel of the car I've always wanted. I hope that by the time I buy it, I'll have a custom license plate, just as I discussed with my lawyer, with the words from the song, "Damn It Feels Good to Be a Gangster." I can't help but wonder how she'll react when she receives the divorce summons and realizes I'm serious about selling the house. The irony is that we'll both walk away with enough money to start fresh. She might even end up moving in with her family while I move on with my life. My wife, who cheated on me, is now returning her truck to the bank and trying to make small talk with me through text messages. But I've managed to keep my responses neutral and often ignore her attempts to reach out. She recently texted me about evaporative coolers at Home Depot, reminding me of our failed attempt to buy one during a winter sale. She also asked when I'd be home, mentioned us living in separate rooms, and even wished me a good time at the water park tomorrow, a trip I'd planned with the kids. By the way, dads, water parks seem to be a hotspot for single moms post-divorce. Today, my ex-wife sent a message saying she'll be renting a truck for $730 a month. As a result, our oldest won't have access to a reliable car with over 220,000 miles. I have to admit, it's a bit satisfying to see her dealing with the consequences of her actions. I also had a long chat with my sister, who shared some info about the guy my wife is seeing. Apparently, this guy has been through 4 failed marriages. According to my sister, he has a habit of latching onto women, draining their finances, and then disappearing. While it sounds far-fetched, my sister passed this information on to me. I told her that if this is true, I hope he leaves my wife quickly so we can wrap up the divorce. I also mentioned that I hope their relationship lasts until I finish all the legal paperwork and free myself from this mess. On a related note, I recently talked to my wife about this. She told me she plans to return the truck as part of refinancing the house. She can't afford to settle the truck loan and manage a new mortgage at the same time. Interestingly, this aligns with my plan to move out of our shared home. She knew I was looking for a new place and had no intention of staying in a house where she was openly having an affair. I informed her I planned to transfer ownership of the house to her, but I demanded a buyout. I have various liquid assets she'd need to give up to get my share. Despite the substantial amount, it's still less than I require. The cost of leaving swiftly seems minor in comparison. I aim to resolve this while she's cooperative. Experience shows that with time and distance, people tend to overlook the importance of a fair division. Even though she's upset about not getting a portion of the liquid assets, I assured her she'd have full ownership of the house and could decide whether to keep it until the kids grow up or invite her boyfriend to move in. It's her decision. Still, I remain cautious and vigilant. Tomorrow is a big day for me. I'm buying a new home and getting all the legal documents prepared by my lawyer. Those who know my routine are aware that my ex-wife, whom I was with for 19 years, had an affair that I discovered in March. At first, I made a desperate attempt to win her back, but after talking to a psychologist, I realized my life would be better without her. So I found a rental house close to our current home, allowing our kids to visit freely. To make things easier for school pickups and drop-offs, I switched work shifts. The move happens tomorrow, as I've already got the keys to the new place and set up the utilities. Luckily, I'm financially stable enough to make this transition. I should also mention that I have an appointment with a lawyer to finalize the divorce papers. My soon-to-be ex-wife and I reached an agreement via email, which the lawyer will use as a template for the documents. If everything goes smoothly, we'll sign the papers at the meeting and wait out the required period. If all goes well, I expect to have the divorce finalized by late June or early July. It may not be the perfect outcome, but my mental well-being is worth it. Regarding my job, I still have a few restricted shares set to vest in the future. Thankfully, our agreement states that my soon-to-be ex-wife waives any claim to these shares if I stay in my current position. These shares are potentially valuable. Given the ongoing support from my company, including 30 days of leave and short-term disability benefits, I have no reason to leave. This whole experience has only strengthened my loyalty to my employer. Fortunately, my soon-to-be ex-wife has a well-paying job, so I won't be required to pay spousal support. With joint custody and my coverage of the kids' medical, dental, and vision insurance, My alimony obligation is only $1, $42 a month for less than 60 months. We're even considering waiving this small commitment altogether. Looking ahead, I'm excited about the prospect of retiring abroad in 5 years when the kids are grown. Instead of working in the USA until I'm 70, I'll be able to retire at 47. Feeling trapped in my marriage made me realize that I was wasting money on extravagant houses and material possessions that didn't truly matter to me. Living far from my future ex-wife has turned out to be an unexpected advantage. Though my heart is bruised by the end of this relationship, I refuse to let it define me or steal my ability to love. I believe there's someone out there to whom I'll eventually give my heart, even if it means risking vulnerability again. Love and hope are powerful forces that should endure, even after betrayal. In times like these, I find comfort in a quote I'd like to share. However, we do not look back for a long time. We continue to move forward, opening new doors and embracing new experiences. Our curiosity propels us onto uncharted paths. This quote serves as a reminder not to dwell on the past, but to focus on moving forward, discovering new opportunities, and embracing the unknown. Curiosity is our guiding light, leading us to new and exciting journeys in life. Having decided to start fresh, I'm taking steps to fulfill my wish list. In just a few hours, I'll embark on a journey abroad. July is dedicated to self-discovery, so I've planned a trip to Thailand. As I navigate the waters of being single again, it's crucial for me to reconnect with the parts of myself I've lost touch with. I'm actively seeking new experiences and adding them to my growing list. When my soon-to-be ex-wife messages me, I respond at my own pace, sometimes taking days, while the divorce proceedings continue. I prioritize my well-being and ensure the process is progressing. Financial matters and property division have been settled, leaving only custody and alimony to finalize. My lawyer advised me not to accept my future ex-wife's unreasonable proposal, which wouldn't likely pass in court. Instead, we submitted our own proposal. In my proposal, I emphasize that our children are now old enough to express their preferences about custody. I've also secured a place within walking distance of my future ex-wife's home to make it easy for the kids to visit. It's worth noting that after I moved, she quickly relocated her lover to a new place. What once might have bothered me now seems almost comical, like a cliché. As for my trip, I must admit that I'm not going alone. There's someone new joining me. Interestingly, what keeps me up at night isn't the pain of my spouse's infidelity, but the 14-hour time difference. For anyone struggling through a difficult divorce, I have one piece of advice: never give up. Life throws challenges our way, but it's important to keep pushing forward. After a lengthy ordeal, I'm relieved to announce that my divorce is now officially finalized. Leaving my ex-wife wasn't an easy decision, especially after she began an affair, clearly indicating she wanted to end our marriage. The outcome for custody and alimony wasn't exactly what I hoped for, but I anticipated that the ideal scenario might be more of a dream than reality. Nevertheless, I managed to negotiate the alimony terms. I convinced her to contribute half of the alimony to our son's college funds to ensure a better future for them. Given that our kids are now teenagers, the idea that they can choose how to spend their weekends seemed reasonable. They're old enough to make their own decisions. There are just a few important matters left to settle. The custody agreement now requires my ex-wife to handle the kids' school transportation, which has allowed me to take on a travel role at work. This change lets me work about 15 extra hours a week in overtime, covering food expenses without impacting the alimony calculation in our area. I also updated my work insurance policy to exclude her, which saves me even more money. Her insurance at work might end up being more beneficial than the alimony she receives. Recently, I heard she's dealing with health issues, including breast cysts. It's unfortunate, but it's hard not to see a kind of poetic justice in it. I hope this doesn't sound too harsh, but I'm committed to being honest. After all these developments, I've taken steps to update my life insurance to ensure she can't benefit from it. I encountered her recently while helping with our child's medical expenses, and I was surprised to find that seeing her didn't affect me emotionally. I'm moving forward, determined to lead a life free from negativity. For those beginning this challenging journey, remember there is hope. There is light at the end of the tunnel, and brighter days are ahead. I must admit that at the start, I behaved in ways I'm not proud of. I begged her to come back and lost my composure. It even led to a leave of absence from work and some personal setbacks. But I can confidently say that it is possible to get through it. It's not easy, but it's doable. It seems like karma is finally catching up. I've always believed that people eventually face the consequences of their actions. I recently found out my ex-wife lost her job, ironically at the same company where she met her lover. This seems fitting, given her history of sabotaging relationships and having inappropriate workplace affairs. Considering her past actions, I'm not surprised. Yes, she had 2 affairs and her partner was married too. I later discovered she's been diagnosed with breast cancer and is undergoing treatment. Without her job, she's struggling financially. It also emerged that her older lover persuaded her to sell the house and then disappeared with the money. While the kids say she's having an emotional breakdown, I find it hard to feel sorry for her. She made her choices. As she deals with the fallout, I'm building a new life with a woman who truly appreciates and loves me.